Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nasdaq Spotlight. I'm your host, Emily Drury, coming to you from the Nasdaq market site in Times Square. Today we are sitting down with Charles Fan, founder and CEO of MemVerge. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So let's start by talking about MemVerge. Tell us about your company and what you guys are doing.
Sure. We are a technology startup. We develop a software layer on top of a new kind of memory that's going to completely change the data center.
That's fantastic. And why did you feel the need to start this company?
Sure. So as you know, we are living in an age of data. There are more and more data created faster and faster. And the infrastructure is having a hard time keeping up. Intel developed a new technology that was released earlier this year that's called Optane Persistent Memory. It is a type of storage class memory that combines the speed of DRAM with the persistence of storage. So memory and storage has been two different concepts. And this new hardware has the promise of bringing the two into one. And that's going to make the storage much faster, make the memory much bigger. So that's a pretty exciting new technology. We think it's going to be a big breakthrough for the data center. In order for today's application to use this new hardware, there's a layer of software that's needed. This software is needed to make the API compatible with existing applications. It's also needed to deliver the necessary data services on top of this memory so that it can maximize its usefulness. And our job is to develop this layer of software.
Fantastic. So you mentioned this will be pretty revolutionary. Like, what industries do you most expect to be impacted by this?
Sure. We're in the middle of it. This is New York, and financial industry is actually one of the industries that's going to benefit from it the most, because one of the strongest property of this new type of memory is the low latency, how fast the data can be made available and made persistent. With the financial industry, we are working with a number of clients, developing a new infrastructure for market data, so that market data can be readily analyzed in real time and deliver the insights that's needed to perform the trades.
That is absolutely game-changing.
Yes.
So before your system, AI, IoT, and real-time analytics apps suffered from frequent crashes and challenges. So how does this really solve that problem? Sure.
So the combination of our software and this Intel Optane memory is very fast. And it is so fast that I/O bottleneck is not only improved, but removed. Because what I/O is movement of data from memory to storage and from storage to memory. That's I and O. Once they become one, there's no more I/O needed because they are one thing. There's no more transport needed. So what used to take a long time can now be done very quickly. One example of it is checkpointing or snapshots, which is where you persist the memory state onto storage, which usually you have to copy all the data from memory media to the storage media. But now with persistent memory, this can be made instant because there's no more movement needed. And checkpointing is very useful for crash recovery. The reason for you to save the memory state is so that when the crash happened, you can recover the state back into memory so that you can recover your applications. But before, it's done very slowly because of the need to do these I/Os. And now with our type of solution, these I/Os are no longer needed. The checkpointing can be much more efficient, and crash recovery can be much easier.
So this is very exciting. You're clearly very excited
Yes.
about all of these changes. What are you most looking forward to in terms of impact?
Right. So our long-term vision is that the memory layer will play a bigger role inside of data center. So today, data center is pretty complicated. You get compute, you got memory, you got storage. There could be different layers of storage, and you got networking that's connecting all these things together. Now, memory tier, we think, going to look very different if you move forward 5 or 10 years. Number one, it's going to be much bigger, partly thanks to the storage class memory, such as Intel Optane memory. It's going to be up to 100 times bigger. So now you have a few hundred gigabytes of memory. Tomorrow, imagine inside of each server, you get 100 terabytes of memory. That's going to completely change how applications are developed and are deployed. Secondly, these memories will be persistent in themselves. That means combining with the right type of software, such as ours, that providing the data services, such as checkpointing, snapshots or replication, the storage tier may no longer be needed. The persistence of data can be achieved from the memory tier itself. So you have the whole storage industry, that's about $50 billion, that just go away. So this is going to completely reshape how the data center are constructed. And so we are in our step one of this journey. And I think it's going to be a huge impact to how data center are architected, to how applications are developed and deployed.
So what does the timeline look like for this? You mentioned something about 5 to 10 years, but this entire industry being disrupted, is that in the immediate future, or?
So I think we are in the year zero of this memory-centric data center. Storage class memory had been talked about over the last 20 years. But the first real product came out this year, in second quarter of 2019. We think it's going to take 5 to 10 years for this vision to become true. And we are about 3 years old. And we are in beta of our version 1 of the software. And next year, we're going to introduce the GA version of our software. So we are going to see the first customer, the first use case being used. And I think in the next 5 years, this is going to become a $10 billion market already. And then it's going to go on from there.
So I'll check back in with you in about 5 years, okay?
Yes, yes.
If not sooner.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Charles.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Nasdaq Spotlight. I'm your host, Emily Drury, signing off until next time.